I'm here with John O'Donnell, President and Chief Executive Officer of Allstate Insurance. And John, just before the break, we were just started to touch on the concept of shared goals and accountability. When Allstate goes about looking at creating those goals for the enterprise, is there anything you can share with us about the process of how that works? Because some of the folks watching maybe having the opportunity to do that themselves. What sort of tips can you give them?
Sure. I think it's important, and you mentioned it, having the shared goals. So we have an organization that consists of 3 separate companies, yet we are able to roll up our goals into an enterprise goal. In fact, what we've done is we have a 10-year strategic goal for growth and profitability. And then we can break that down into an annual goal. Mm-hmm. And it's remained fairly consistent, fortunately, where we're balancing the growth and profit. And people understand what that is, and they're all aligned. And in fact, we've created some market team structures to achieve that goal at a very simple level, yet you can imagine the detailed planning that goes into that.
So when you talk about market teams, or you talk about rolling up the goals, I mean, I think one of the things that is critically important is that the goals need to first and foremost be at the very senior level, so everybody knows that's the direction the boat is going in. And then the next part is that what's the role that I play or my team plays in helping the senior executives accomplish those overall goals? Because those are the goals those are the promises you've made to the stakeholders.
Yes.
Right? So when you have gotten your goals aligned as an organization, is there any things that you can share with us on, how do you get that communicated out to the organization so that everybody's clear on what their role is and where they're going?
We do it in a number of ways. We will go and we tend to be, so one of the tenets I had mentioned earlier was transparency.
Right.
So we will communicate that throughout the organization, and everyone's a stakeholder. They understand how they contribute. That is one of our internal goals, is everyone understands how they contribute to the organization's goals. Whether it's more directly in some cases than others. And then also we do have some incentives. So we have performance management, but we also have profit sharing, where the whole company is on the same grid, and it's 50% on growth and profit, and based on what our goals are. What our plan is for the year, and it's 50% based on different measures of customer experience and business partner experience through surveys.
So I want to come back to that, because those are, I think, really important things in terms of how you measure and recognize people. When you create the goals for the organization, different people play different roles, as you said, some of them more directly. But I think one of the keys is, to me, from my experiences, is that everyone has to understand the critical importance that they play in achieving those roles. And I always like to say, you need to have a direct line between where I am and the senior executive in terms of real clarity, so that if I know how I contribute, I'm going to feel more empowered to make that contribution. Do you find that, in a business that can be somewhat compensation driven, because there's a lot of independence there, is that as important, or is the focus on dollars take precedence? Any thoughts on that?
My feeling is that people understand what they need to do to support the team goals. In some cases, it'll be more specific in terms of what some of those targets are. For example, on the sales side of the business,
like I need to sell X number of policies in order to hit my goals for the year.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. In other cases, it may be more subjective in terms of how they're supporting the overall business. But at the end of the day, everyone understands what the company's goals are. As I mentioned, we try and keep it simple enough that we can be very transparent, and people understand what we're targeting collectively. and then they're striving for that.
Well, I also noticed that when you talked about the goals, you brought really two buckets into play. And I like to refer that as my personal version of a balanced scorecard, and I know lots of other people use that word for other things, but my personal version of a balanced scorecard is one is the sort of the numerics of the business, regardless of what those are, and in your case it's probably things like, policies sold and, those kinds of things, the number of claims, et cetera. So there's some very clear numerics. But on the other side of it is another set of metrics associated with customer service and customer satisfaction, and you brought those both up. How does Allstate sort of take those things into consideration? What are some of the things that you're doing to understand your customer, number one, and number two, how are those pieces of information being used to drive the business? So let's start with number one. What kinds of information are you drawing in to find out about the customer?
Well, we are continuously surveying customer loyalty. Both and sometimes specific to different parts of the business. So we have an overall survey that we'll use as well as specific to, as you're aware, we have a strong agency distribution channel. So we'll survey those customers about their specific interaction with the agency. We'll also survey customers post a claims experience and understand how that experience was for them. Was it fair? Was it expedient for them? We'll also survey. We work with brokers and that's more of a B2B relationship for a part of our business. We'll survey the brokers to see if we're meeting their needs and expectations as well.
So some might say that insurance is a price-driven commodity, and yet what I'm hearing you as the senior leader at Allstate say no, and that may be a part of it, but customers are also important. Have you found that having satisfied or loyal customers actually contributes to bottom line profitability of an organization?
Absolutely. So it's interesting. There have been some recent surveys in insurance, and one of the reasons that customers will select, for example, the agency channel, one of the key drivers is they're looking for personalized advice. Right. I would suggest that is not necessarily a commodity, that all advice is not necessarily equal. And when we measure our indication of customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, it is correlated to customers' likelihood to stay with us, which, of course, has economic impact, financial impact to us.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I find puzzling. That and more companies are kind of getting it now, but really leading thinkers fully acknowledge the fact that if we have satisfied customers, those satisfied customers can become loyal customers, and there's a big difference between a satisfied and a loyal customer. Loyal customers become champions for your business. They're less expensive to manage them as customers. There's a greater likelihood they're going to repeat. They'll tell their friends. But yet there's so many organizations out there that are still sort of like numbers, and forgetting about that. I'd even go so far as to say that in the insurance business, I mean, really, you guys sell a promise. And absolutely. It's only when I'm at possibly my worst situation, I've had an accident of some sort, I've had a calamity of some sort, that you get to step in. So you get me at a very tender point emotionally. And if you're not there for me emotionally, it's going to be incredibly damaging to that relationship.
Absolutely. One of the other things we did just about a year ago, or early in my tenure, is we refreshed our mission and vision statements. And in our mission statement, we talk about providing strength, experience, and care to our customers. That's one of the things that I believe resonates within the organization and builds, I believe there's a special pride at Allstate in what we do, and really it deals with connecting to that mission and sort of the moment of truth with the customer when we fulfill that promise. But it's not only even then, it starts right away when we're discussing the right coverage for a customer. Right. So I believe even someone on the sales side can deeply connect with the ultimate mission of the organization. And I found that's something that keeps people going, and we talk about deep employee engagement. I think that's critical, and that's foundational to it. And I've been in other organizations where I've gotten energized from the mission, and if I don't have that, I sometimes struggle with sort of my individual purpose in an organization.
Yeah.
So you go back to the military and in the Marine Corps, protecting our freedom. That's a pretty simple
clear.
one. Yeah, it keeps you going.
Let's take a quick break on that, because I want to come back and spend a little bit more time talking about vision and mission, and maybe some of the exercise you went through to get that clarity for it after the
Sure.
break.
Great.
Great.